and Astralis, our spring champions versus the academy organization that crashed out in our first split. Can they redeem themselves? Can either of these teams redeem themselves as they make the run through the lower bracket for our final Amazon European Masters spots?
See, we're getting the LEC caster out of you. The narratives are all here.
Of
And
course,
immediately,
so much.
there's something I want to pick out here. Because you see on the carries of Astralis, there are cleanses. And this is also a spellbook cleanse Ahri. This is new tech. I say new tech. This is tech which Ahri has started taking into Lysandra. Even though I believe you can win that match very early on with electrocutes and play it very aggressively, if you go towards Spellbook and you have, your Cosmic Insight as a secondary rune, and you go for those Ionian Boots of Lucidity, your cleanse cooldown becomes so low. And those playmaking windows you're looking for with Renata ults, with Lysandra, get a lot lower. So I think Astralis, even with this, again, they're looking at this combo of the Jarvan and Lysandra and saying, okay, how do we stop this and play disengage later into this? Because if you get those cleanses up and you have an Ornult playing blocker as well, I think Astralis have ways to peel back in a team fight and deal with this diving combo from X7.
Okay, well, let's put a spotlight in on that mid lane matchup while we have a chance. Both of them have had pretty damn good splits, but honestly, Tempt, look at those numbers. 756 DPM as a mid laner is a Herculean effort from the LCK import.
And that is a kill participation you would expect out of junglers. Now, in pre-show, the desk really did bring up a lot of Viking stats and said, this is not something which Viking has been doing. He's more been the scaffolding, right, to support these winning lanes. And winning lanes like this, when you have Tempt putting up such big numbers, have been so critical to this team. So yeah, looking at this mid lane matchup, it does look like this is where the playmaking is on both sides. So very good to put the spotlight there.
We'll keep our eyes on it, and I suspect we'll be coming back here often enough as junglers and sports, and everything we've talked about in the pre-show likely comes to fruition. And while we've got this moment here as well, I'll take a moment to remind people we do have some hashtags, NLC pets here. Jonesy's been exploring the new plant thanks to Leven. I do enjoy some good cat picks, and I'm hoping...
Okay, I'm glad we're setting the tone very early with this one. We've got a serious narrative. Also, hey, can you show us your furry face?
Please do. We will love to see them, and keep an eye on this one is Astralis. X7 are apparently their
what breed is that? What breed is that, Sam?
That is,
oh my God,
it's a breed of banter. It's a breed of banter, and Dax is looking to prove that tweet. Oh, so right. We'll see whether X7 can respond. A handshake will keep away a flash now from Kasing. And Attila not quite gone down yet. Crispeg will spell shield, and Viking is here as well. Maybe we should have put the focus on the bot side as both players have a look down here. Flash down from Taxa, but it'll be traded for Kasing.
I don't know. It looks like this dog's biting the hand that feeds. Taxa comes down and, well, luckily doesn't feed this time. But with that, that's flash down. Of course, X7 will know that. Blast Cone hadn't spawned at this point. That's the only way he gets over that wall. They should be able to ping that. Viking has prio in mid. Lysandra's pushed in early because the Ahri hasn't had any resources. Tempt is going to walk up. It's not going to end up being able to crowd them out of the jungle too much. They're going to lose a blue buff for this. But this is something which Astralis have started to evolve past, right? In the regular season, they typically were being, again, the team which roams mid lane, uses that winning support matchup, uses winning jungle matchups to make sure that Senkux gets off on the right foot. This time, goes bot instead, and you can see that Senkux has evolved to this point now where he doesn't need all those resources, plays safely, and gets out safely.
Does indeed credit over to that, but of course, still X7 making things happen early on, and we did see a big shift, really, when the likes of Viking came in. We kind of had that chat about in the pre-game as well. This player has been a big, I don't know, spark, a catalyst for changes in X7, and while Astralis really impressed us, honestly, in their playoffs match against Red Bull. It was a close series, don't get me wrong, but they turned it beyond what we were necessarily expecting, at least from us behind the scenes. They put up a strong fight, and now we've got a lot of analysts saying this could potentially be another very close series.
I think if you tuned in at the end of the regular season, you'd be right in thinking this would be an X7-sided affair. But actually, yeah, I agree. After the first round, I do genuinely feel like Astralis are going to come in and brawl, and immediately we do see that X7 starting to crowd off a couple of waves in this bot side, but Astralis not going to get punished beyond a couple of missed CS. I think this should be a very close affair too. Aragon called it a 3-2. I think it could be a 3-2 to X7 as well. I think that X7 are still coming in as a very scary team, but setting expectations, it's close, but I think it is still decided just on the side of our reigning champions.
Yeah, and to remind people of the expectations, Astralis again, throwing their
You
own
just
out
wanted
this
to
one.
press that again.
I
You
know,
really wanted to make
it's
sure that we
such
knew
a
what was
banger
happening with the
tweet.
BM.
I love that spicy banter. We'll see whether X7 have anything to respond with as the series goes on, but it's nice to see that the Orgs are certainly ready and raring to go coming into this series.
See a little bit of tussle in the mid lane. Senkok's actually did something which I love doing on Ari there, where you actually use your charm at the end of the trade, particularly when you're against a lower late range champion like Lysandra. If you can charm a champion in early levels back into the minion wave, it just gives them an extra second or two of eating those minion autos. It can give you a nice extra bit of damage. And you can see again that these mid laners playing very closely off against each other. We did highlight that matchup right at the start of the game. You know, we could have looked towards so many of them, but it does feel like, again, the playmaking is around here. Taxa once again finding his way over here. And with Dragon now spawned, that mid-prayer, of course, gives you the extra window to get through the wider corridor of that mid-lane bush into the river.
Indeed, there is. They don't use too much of it as yet, of course. See whether now with the level 6s coming through in the solo lanes particularly, we start seeing a little more action there, and whether that ability to access the river and get those wider entrances in, as Myra was just talking about, becomes more relevant now that those bigger tools to make the engages and picks happen is on the table and available for both these teams.
So,
yeah,
we were looking to what could happen with these junglers very early on as well. Looked at Taxa and Viking looking to impact on these early game junglers, but I think it's testament to the defensive prowess of both of these teams that nothing has happened so overtly at this point. It has been about this kind of push and shove. Tempt, what's he going to be able to blow out of here? That's a lot of damage immediately.
that's the cleanse. Won't throw too much more, but that is that summoner down. Does, of course, have the spellbook to get out, but that cleanse being down means a return gank is now very much on the card.
It also means that if Astralis look for a fight in the next minute or to minute and a half while that ultimate is down from Lysandra, you're going to be down there. So actually fighting potential in the very short term is over to Astralis. It is about that return play, as you were saying. But with that being said, X7 not looking to immediately go towards the dragon, not looking to immediately go elsewhere on the map. So that's not going to be as relevant. Looking back towards that mid lane.
Indeed, we are. And again, a reminder. Stakes on the line here are the final EU Masters spot. You win this series, you are in EU Masters. You get minimum third, minimum play-ins. You get a chance to go fight off against JDXL, who put on a great showing against Dusty, taking that game to five games against our expectations again. But potentially both these teams thinking, well, maybe with how they were looking towards the end of the split, we can even look to get towards the finals, win the split, get thatted, get the mainstay spot. For X7, it would be a chance to retain their crown from Spring. For Astralis, it's a chance to redeem themselves from Spring. So much on the line here for both of these teams.
Yeah, so that's kind of like in the big, kind of very compelling side of things. On the other side of it, too, on a pragmatic side, looking at that upper bracket, the start of that, the teams there, I don't think are out of reach of these two. I think the winner of this series going up against JDXL, who won 5 games against Dusty, are looking at that series and saying, we could take that. I think that either of those teams, whoever ended up losing that, going up against these lower bracket teams, would have to be very, very wary. We are set for some very close series in the back end of this playoffs. Going back into the more of the game at hand, though, we haven't seen any early rotations towards the Herald just yet. Bot lanes have reset and the supports are thinking about heading up there, but it's not evolved into anything just yet. And some item completions will be on their way. First backs come in, gold's been spent. Neither team ready to pull the trigger just yet.
Astralis with very defensive control walls there to assume they've got access, or ensure, rather, they've got access into the river as Kiba has done what his old jungling self would have done and made a nice little rotation towards his mid lane as Tempt tries down the glacial path but won't take it. And Astralis can keep it back off for now.
So that's the kind of point where you were looking at that cleanse versus ult cooldown. The ult is now back up from Temp, so you have more fighting potential from X7. Don't have Merc Treads on Senkox, as we were saying. The tech for Ari into Lysandra now has been cooldown boots, which help you, again, get more summoners off of cooldown, because it affects summoner cooldown too, and also having that spell book. But the cleanse isn't back up yet. You're not ready to fight just yet.
No, you are not. And of course, hasn't used the spellbook to change that out to something else as yet. But Kasing now roamed up, and we've got ourselves a big fight. Kasing has got level 6, though. Hostile takeover is available. Wild growth is not. Huge advantage for X7 should they choose to fight this, though. Chasey, not a mega.
Yeah, it's a 5v4 because then 80 carries are involved. Okay, right. So Zeri down on bot side. Do X7 still choose to fight this? That Renata ult is so disgusting.
And think about it, down to 1800 and smite of the way. X7 back off. Will leave Attila down to take some plates and not look to engage even with that level advantage. The discrepancy in numbers just too risky.
I think that's the correct decision. Tempt just fishing, especially with Astralis just managing to split up. Now, Astralis don't have vision into X7's jungle. X7 on the other side have managed to get a couple of wards here and there, and they're able to battle ward their way into the enemy jungle. Astralis Playing safely enough for now.
Risky here, he's gone over the wall, doesn't have that many ways out. Flash from Key, but they're going to continue trying to chase, but here come the rest with Flash for Flash. But Tempt, not going to get too much. The hostile takeover used to try and dissuade any further action.
Hey, but while all this has happened, we're talking about those plates in bot side. That's 3. That's not even just your bog standard.
Nearly 4.
Well, very much. They're not going to be able to get it on this wave, I don't think, but Attila's already picked up solo plates. It's not even shared between him and a jungler or whatever. This is going to be a lot of gold.
Oh, wow.
That's that AD carry. And just from this set of plays, X7 just being able to delay and harass Astralis on their way back to allocating people down towards that bot lane wave, have lost out in the long trade. They're losing out in the Infernal Dragon as well. This is not patch 12.14, of course. You don't have the increased value on it for those who've been tracking some of the major regions which have switched over to that patch, but it's still getting that early objective. It's still getting ahead in gold. X7, in the metrics which we measure, are ahead.
Take this moment here as well to just check in with that bot lane, because both these players have been pretty key in those team fights. They're on 2 very expensive, dangerous hyper carries in the Zeri and the Sivir that do so much work at 3 items. You can see big numbers from both of them, if even Attila leading slightly here.
I really like the way that you call them expensive carries, because it's not a term that we use very much. I definitely agree with it, though. They are the correct carries. They want to be building up expensive items in the way that, of course, a lot of AD carries do. And these are also AD carries that really start to peak around 3 items. It's not even like your 1 to 2, which Jinx or Felios kind of did. They peak a little later, but when they get to that point, they're so hard to take care of. And right back when Zeri was released, and heck, you know, one of the very first things I did this year when I was back onto the big studio broadcast was that Zeri Spotlight. Yeah. One of the things which stuck out for me right then, right from the off, was Zeri doesn't always do the most damage, but you can never stop Zeri doing damage. Feels like Civ is in a very similar state right now too, where that Ricochet is doing so much work. So both these champions having a lot of that gold, you get to that 3 items, and with a slow game, you're expecting it to get more towards that point. Expect these AD carries to be a huge part of the late game.
Yeah, and serious credit to X7 there for tilting that matchup in the favor of their AD carry. You get so much alone time to get a 20 CS advantage, to get the 4 plates, and that Herald came at such a cost.
Once again, we see X7 being really proactive about making sure Chrisberg, that expensive build AD carry, can't get much done. Kiba,
it's roots in place into the Cataclysm, nowhere to go. Remember, he flashed to get on top of Tent. Here comes Astralis, time to turn this one around, leave Tempt out to be charmed. Here come the rest of the turnaround, though. Tempt goes down, has got to bail up and no way to turn it out. And Astralis beginning to punish hostile takeover, prevent too much easy follow-up. Senkox has got 1 charge left, flashes forward for a charm! Into the double kill for the Ahri. Now with 1 more charge available, the reset in hand. Taxa stepping forward, handshake from Kasing, but he has to flash out, and Attila throwing out the burst fires, but nothing left to be done, and what was supposed to be a pick is swiftly punished.
That's a slick little misdirection from Senkox. Flashes around the target to get to his actual intended quarry. Astralis, they punish X7. X7 have been doing this for the last couple of minutes now. They've been just poking into the enemy jungle, seeing what they can do about catching people in rotation. This is a big moment now, because you've used a lot of your fighting tools, so you can't punish something like this. Herald being summoned in the mid lane, while X7 on the passive kind of income, just slowly whittling down towers, slowly denying CS, work coming out ahead. The big power play, the first of the series, goes to Astralis.
Does indeed. Let's have a look at the game, because it looked like they've got a fantastic pick, but Kiba gets the wild growth, buys enough time, and then Senkox and Taxa are just here in time.
And also has the heal as the summoner spell. You know, it's the heal cleanse from the bot lane. You don't have an ignite or exhaust, but it buys enough time. Kiba gets out with actually more than enough HP bar to spare. And this is really slick. So I really want to see what the... there you go. Really
Super.
just like... gets it to cancel the ultimate as well. By the way, you can flash mid-ultimate charge from... that Ahri, slick stuff, gets the resets, knows no turnaround is coming through, and that's a very clean kill.
And the cinematics there as well. Beautiful stuff from our reservists to make that kill even more gorgeous. Of course, X7 still up about 2,000 gold here, despite the heroics there from Astralis. Off that first tower and off the advantage they've got elsewhere, so it's a step in the right direction, but do keep in mind that X7 are the ones still leading here, despite that.
They are, and of course that means that they get the AD carry itemization completed first. Attila gets all of those plates down bot side, and I believe that, well, it is the first tower, because Astralis haven't even taken one just yet. They whittled down the mid lane one well enough, but it's not finished. But not the only person to finish an item. That's the Leandri's on the Ahri, and that's an item which we're seeing a little bit more of. I don't dislike the item, but what I will say about this, because I've seen this so many times on the champion, you got to make sure you're hitting the right targets. If you're playing Leandri's, diving the backline isn't going to be so great. If you're hitting Jarvan, actually pretty pretty good. And you can see in that last fight, when Jarvan or Lissandra is going in towards the Ahri, and she manages to kind of pin them in place, get a lot of damage over time, that's pretty good. You can start your ult off early, look for resets through, and just get burn over time onto multiple members. But you need to be very aware of the targets you are hitting. So that's what I'm going to be looking for Senkux. Has a fair amount of agency with the gold that they've been given, but with this build, needs to be very careful in target selection.
Yes, you do. And Cole's been cashed in for Chasey, as a reminder, and everyone else pretty much ahead in CS in the individual lanes. And that is a conversation we have had about X7, that what Viking has done for this team has been to help set up the lanes to do what they do best, which is just have better hands in some ways. And you can see it across the board there. It's paying into a lot of that advantage they've found in terms of the gold. It's just raw numbers.
Yeah, and numbers on the board right now, as you're saying, particularly in that bot lane, are getting a little bit worrying for Astralis because Zeri and Sivir are fairly alike. They're both these champions which will kind of hit you through your front line, whether that's through the chain lightning and extended range of the burst fire from the Zeri, or whether it's the ricochet from the Sivir. Of course, we're not really at the point where the AD carries have just become this overwhelming damage threat. But where the AD carries are on the map, you're still looking for push pressure and objective control. X7, get the Zeri towards the top side of the map, take that Herald. Now Astralis have to worry where that's going to be put down, because if they're playing against pushing lanes and there's a Herald involved, you're not even going to be able to trade that for the early game objectives, the plates.
And of course, first Herald went away with Astralis, but X7 traded that for Drake, and Astralis here looking to do the same kind of deal on the other side. Dragon goes the way of Astralis early on. Tempt doing his best to hold on to this wave. I don't think he'll take that glacial path. The rest of Astralis looking to secure this mid lane tower that did get chunked out fairly heavily earlier. But here come the rest of X7. I think they want to fight this.
Not sure they're in a real place to. And again, this is the worry I have about X7 versus Astralis in this game, because I look at this conversation which Astralis have, and if you overreach, like we saw in that one fight we've had so far, Astralis have ways to disengage it, whether that is a charm into stopwatch or whatever, or the Ornn ult which is being pulled out now. It's very dangerous to go too deep.
Tempt will flash, avoid the charm with a nice stop. Flash forward from Carlson, but he'll self-ult to keep himself alive for now. Doesn't have the ult remaining, and there's just nowhere to go. Tempt is deleted for a second time this game.
For a player who has been incredible on the defense to X7, Tempt is getting preyed on. Astralis, throughout so much of this split, have found ways to punish mid laners. They do it again in this series, and how important is it to do this right now?
Massive, massive stuff. A third kill, all of them on this Ahri, who's going towards a blighting duel second, looking for the early pen to back up that Liandry's and try and make sure can carry across multiple targets here.
And again, that makes sense, right? You're rarely going to get access to this area, and even if you do, there's going to be a Renata W onto them. It's just about choosing the right targets. If you are hitting the Merc Treads, Lissandra, or anyone on top side, very much help, but Crispo, he's going to get hit a couple of times by the X7 members.
Nowhere to go. First kill of the game for X7 goes the way of Chasey. Already getting quite ahead of his own lane opponent, but that is something nice on the board here. And Astralis, though, this mid lane push maybe can look to still retain control of the map and not lose too much off the back of losing their AD carry.
But what they've already started losing is a huge amount of vision. Look at that topside river, see them on screen right now, Vikings walking through it, and there's just a field of wards from X7. Even though the mid lane tower has gone down very early, so X7 don't have that to play around. X7 have got the wards in hand right now. And Astralis still haven't managed to get any wards over into the enemy jungle, really. They're playing off of an information deficit.
And of course, I'm still not entirely sure what wards are, you know? They're there to see vision. What are they made of is my real question. They just do things like maybe allow Viking to get out of danger here. The hostile taker comes through, but that will be a flash and double ultimates popped by X7 in trade for the 2 from Astralis in their jungle and support as well.
Yeah, not the combo they're really looking for. Because later into the game, you know, the hotbox combo becomes really important for knocking down those backline carries who just don't have any flashes. But right there, you're locking someone into it. You know, it doesn't actually do any extra damage when there's just the one person autoing. This does a lot of damage though. Ornn doing some work.
God, Tempt will self up, but remember, doesn't have many ways to go. Gets knocked up, knocked down. He's in a bounce house, has a bailout, but nowhere to go. A third death of the game for Tempt. Viking gets out of dodge. Senkux, though, still ult. Flash for the charm. Goes wide. Still has one ult charge remaining. Senkux has been absolutely lethal on the Ahri, but yet doesn't quite land that one.
You know what? That is so close to his kill because of one really niche mechanic. Ari's ult doesn't track if you don't have vision at the very, like somewhere in the middle of your jump. If you manage to flash into the bush right there, it's actually a chance that it ends up targeting and killing. Very, very close. And Senkuk's feeling himself this game. 3 kills on the board, and Astralis' team comp in that situation, showing once again, X7 cannot afford to misplay their dive. If they overstay, this comp from Astralis will really punish them.
And they hold on to this mid lane tower this time around. The Call of the Forge God did so much work, and Tempt again is the sacrificial lamb. Ice Sculpture melts very swiftly under the sustained CC and damage that Astralis were able to bring out.
So going back towards that individual gold, the observers are kindly showing us this. Well, one thing which we haven't talked about is what's happening in this top lane matchup, because actually Nars not been that relevant. As much as pushing down those side lane towers has been a big part of playing out the vision game so far, it's not led to any team fight deficit. Nars not been a big impact. Let's see how that one comes across later on.
Viking to the backside, he's trying to get out to Taxa. Here comes Chasey as well with the Mega Gnar. Temp goes golden, has got a stopwatch as well. Trying to get onto Taxa, who's about to go down. Ooh. Viking gets it with the Cataclysm. Carlson now caught in the middle, but Viking goes down. Those ricochets coming through. Charm onto Attila. He tries to flash for the wall, but can't spark Surge over. Astralis run over another team fight.
It's another one which X7, it feels like they're initiating, but just disrespecting how hard it is to reach their carries. They're not finding their mark on the initial part. And jungler or no, Astralis starting Baron just a minute after spawn.
Chasey teleports in, Kasinga's here, but it is a 2v4 stop, and there's no Mega Gnar for Chasey. Not for a long while. There's still an early Baron, though, so they need to hold on best they can. Astralis will land the charms. Polymorph pop away, though. Chasey now charging up the Mega. Throwing out the loyalty programs. Carlson being forced away. Temp will have teleport in 10 seconds, and maybe, just maybe, they have overstayed. Okay. They will not stick around, and as a result, X7 stave off the Baron for now. But man, Astralis, real hard
But the big thing right now is that this has messed up Astralis' recalls. They were on the Baron. They're not going to be here to defend the mid lane. Outer turret, they're going to lose a Dragon too. Astralis kind of go for the high roll, but it's risky, and they are losing out in the objectives after that. X7 quick on the punish, keeping things interesting. They're still ahead in gold. They're keeping themselves up in these Dragons too. It's only a Cloud Rift, but it's still very important when you are, again, trying to find that way to close the distance. Movement speed very much helps with that, but how dangerous is this getting at this point? Astralis once again proving how dangerous this composition is into X7s.
And Temp once again being the target. You think after they kill off Tax, there's a great turnaround potential. But then just this damage afterwards, the ability to continue to deal damage. Does so much work for Astralis, and the charm onto Attila? Beautiful stuff.
Well, it's right into the Ornn ult as well. It's just CC as soon as the Call of the Forge God comes down. Attila very much struggling after that point. Of course, Attila is at 2.5 items now. Remember what we were talking about? Any carries, 3 items. Things get a little dangerous. You catch Seri in that fight. If you don't catch him in the next one, maybe we'll be having a different story. But that's still yet to be proved. Astralis hitting their marks in the group fights so far.
Eyes on Senkuk's again, though, because, I mean, he's got 2 items complete. He's got a needlessly large rod in inventory as well, so might be looking for Shadow Flame as Taxa steps forward onto Viking, but he'll find 3 members of X7, but here come the rest of Astralis to maybe make this a significantly more uneven fight. Viking will have a bailout, will try and trade this one back out. Does not quite get bailed out. Big growth on the Taxa keeps him alive. Golden goes Tempt, who does not have an ultimate available. He's caught on the back end of this, and they're just caught with Senkuk's going right back to full charges, and now with 3 members, including the jungler down, Astralis can turn back to Baron. And there's got to be Attila and Kasing pulling off heroics to stop this one.
I mean, Taxa and Keeper have found the key to immortality. I don't know whether they've, like, uncovered a Philosopher's Stone. Not sure, but I'm looking at Taxa and Keeper in that fight. I'm like, oh my word, X7 cannot kill the first target. We've basically not seen Lissandra throws and thralls the entire game. Astralis playing the front to back so goddamn well.
And now you have a Sivir who's online. You've got an Ahri that is going towards a death cap at 6-0-2. And my days, just look at this again. They cannot kill Taxa.
Yeah, well, what happens after the key to immortality, the Philosopher's Stone, is the Chamber of Secrets. But this was no secret. The Chamber's loaded, and it's loaded with another great Ornn ult. This Ornn is really disrupting things. The Lulu is really disrupting things. I think Tempt has a really good idea here. Just flash into that Xin Zhao ult, try and take down the jungler, but the calculation isn't quite there. You get that first kill, maybe Zeri gets a bit more space to do something, but X7, they are really struggling.
Yeah, they did send X7 to the Death Chamber of Azkaban. Kept there for a few bits, maybe about a 3rd book length.
Well, maybe that's what the Renata J4 combo is. Maybe that's the Goblet of Fire. We'll see if they can rise
dear.
from the ashes in this game. And okay, yeah, okay.
We're not doing a rise. There'll be like, I don't know, a cease and desist order of the Phoenix to make it stop shortly.
Oh gosh. Well, not really a happy literary tale is this for X7, but for Astralis, it's getting gilded around the edges. This one's a book in hardback, and they're binding it with some ornaments because those ornament items are coming through. Actually, the first one to get updated is Sencox's Leandries. And now you're at the point where Ari is so far ahead of the game, has a death cap on top of everything else. It doesn't actually matter who you're hitting at that point. And Sencox has been doing a great job of just finding the first target in the fight and just gunning them down at this point. Astralis really, really hitting it hard.
Let's have a look in at Sencox at this point. Such a huge part of how this team plays. Involved in 75% of the team's first blood. Doesn't dialogue, gets involved in so many kills. This player has been on the up and up. And to do this versus Tempt, yes, with the assistance of the team, is fantastic news for Astralis in this series.
I know, he's had a phenomenal game one so far. The playmaking, the ability to just know when you can punish someone out of position has been really on show. So Astralis taking command of this one. Game's not done just yet, but you are looking at a whole lot of difficulty for X7 to try and play this out. They haven't found a way to flank in with something like Lysandra. They've been going straight down the middle of Astralis' team composition and really failing to land those knockout blows.
The jungle is in front of Ari. Chasey goes in, but can they turn this one around?
Doing it again!
Throw down a hostile takeover, but cannot kill anything. Sivir, though, does die. Wildgrowth wasn't who they needed to. Big double knockup. That means Chasey burning out. Sencox has to back away, though. Be a 1-for-1 as a heal from Keeper to give the team the movement speed to get out. Means that X7 can prevent the easy turnaround. But look at Attila, still thinking about following some attacks. If taking on Chasey, does TP, will be able to hop over the wall. And Astralis must be afraid. Ultra Shock Laser slows down Carlson. I think Astralis will find themselves corralled. Get the charm onto the Tiller. He stays alive. Shut down. Taxa is out on the other side, but Sencox must try and back out with Kiba. They'll take one more kill. I don't think they'll be able to get anything more as a charm. Prevents too easy a hop. But even so, Chasey hops forward, looking for another kill. Forces a stopwatch out of Sencox. They'll go an Ultra Shot Laser. Shut down. X7 are right back in it.
On Astralis, they overstay just the once. Chrisberg, of all people, is caught in the heroic engage from Chasey. Apparently, the definition of madness is do it again. Same thing, expecting different results. X7 might be mad, but they're geniuses while they're doing it.
Tell you what the difference is. They've got an Infinity Edge in Zeri's pocket this time. A certified Zeri moment, courtesy of the LCK and the rest of them. It's gone straight to the certification board, and it comes back with a 1-team fight and a soul point.
Well, he's got that item. He's got double buffs in Chrisberg. He's had a shocking couple of minutes if he dies for this one, but turning around as good as he gets.
Ooh. The empowered auto attack doing a lot of work, but now Attila is very deep and about to find himself on the wrong end of it. A Lulu potentially here. Tax is here as well. He has got the ability to get over the wall, but the wind becomes lightning, means there is an audacious charge available. Carlson's here alongside a teleport. Has Attila overstayed looking for the 1v1 play? Sencox just goes straight forward with the ultimate and shuts him down. Big overstep.
It's a story of 280 carries being caught out in pretty disastrous circumstances, one after the other. X7 finally find their engage in it. Catches onto Chrisberg so importantly, but right after, Attila oversteps just a tiny bit.
Important to note that there are no objectives to take, so Attila's death doesn't mean that much in the grand scheme of things. The shutdown, that's big, but at least it doesn't lead to anything, for at least on X7 side, things like a Baron, right?
What it does mean is that you don't get to safely push out your lanes. You lost your prio at this point, you're losing control of the map, and that is important, because that's something which X7 were doing very early into the game, and what we were saying is Astralis were not getting vision across the river. That is a lovely line slashed right across the map. Right from top river down to bot river, pretty much every jungle entrance covered besides the very top one by Astralis. They have information of what they want to do now. Have to defend it, of course, but when you don't have an enemy AD carry on the map, helping sweep, helping push, that is much easier to do.
Massively so. And of course, got a Wormfall and Sacrifice upgrade in Chrisberg's inventory as well. That upgraded Kraken Slayer doing a lot of work here as well. As long as he stays alive, cannot fall like he did in the last fight. And if X7 can kind of bait and switch where that wild growth goes, get onto that key target like Sencox, like Chrisberg, maybe they can find another fight like that, even if Astralis have felt largely like the more dangerous opponents in these fights across the game mostly.
And this is why gold can be so misleading as well. This is effectively even as it gets in terms of neutral objectives and into everything else, but these fights have been going Astralis' way.
Vikings to the back end, that hostile takeup's not going to find too much, and that's a very deep TP from Tempt, who'll get an ultimate, but he's now going to have to go golden as well afterwards, potentially. We'll be able to get over the wall, but overcome Astralis, try and punish.
That's the
cone's available, not the easiest to keep following up. They'll back out for now, but it does mean X7 down the TP and a few critical ultimates.
Yeah, couldn't quite do the Vizichachi snipe off of the blast cone, but once again, I love how this illustrates the point. The gold might be even, but X7, the way they are playing, where they're playing straight down the front, rather than being able to find flanks onto key targets, has been struggling so hard to make these team fights work. Now, X7 have a couple of angles to work with. Astralis pinned into the Baron pit. How does that help?
Eva has to heal. He's taken down very low. Overcomes Senks, but at the back end goes Viking, keeping Chrisberg busy. Kim goes golden. So does Taxa afterwards. Chrisberg gets Viking, though. And what about the damage afterwards? Attila trying to stay alive. 2 for Chrisberg as the ricochet goes through. Ultrashot makes it a 2 for 2, though. And Carlson was back out. Chrisberg already at 50 HP. If that, Attila has got an immortal shield button and goes right the way across the wall. Ultra laser. It's not going to be matter as Team Tempt manages to get a ring of frost to murder him. Kiba taken out by the burst fire, and it's a full auto Zeri. Tempt and Attila do the work required, and they win the team fight.
You know the fastest object ever made by man? It was a probe that NASA flung into the sun at 180 kilometers a second. You know what the second fastest man-made object made by man is? This guy on your screen! Tell stacks up so much across this fight, and we were waiting for those AD carry item breakpoints. We kind of mentioned it in the early game. We talked about it a bit more, but then we just kind of sat down and said, well, you know, X7, they're not really getting through the front line. Whatever, gonna struggle at this point. But Zeri stays safe, and this crit damage, the W's flying in, has become a huge issue. We're getting to the point now where we had maybe assumed that X7 were going to be losing on the front to backs. It is not nearly as easy as that.
Absolutely so, and I'll tell you what, the Valorant is happening across the hall in this set of studios, and it feels like Attila has been given the team's whole economy budget. He's picked up every orb under the sun, because he is popping heads left, right, and center right now.
Oh, and he's got himself almost up to that full build. Bloody hell, this is getting...
It's not even AP, and that's like 25% of Tax's HP bar. He's building tanky!
Oh, this is getting to become now a very even game. When I was so ready to just call it on Astralis to say, yep, that's it, front to back is working out for them, and well, it has still been getting close. If Zeri gets to free fire, that is just way too much for them to deal with.
And Tempt's now a threat again as well. He's found a flank angle, goes in, gets a stun onto Senka, to the Meganar. He'll go golden for now. Viking to the backside of the Chrisberg. Flashes away, but he stays alive for now. But not for long as a boulder toss squashes Sivir flat. And X7 on a killing spree. X7 with an team fight win. And X7 will not be counted out. Astralis cannot convert their early game, cannot convert their leads, and cannot find a win in this first game.
Sivir does not get to play these team fights. You have Tempt going onto one of the carries, Viking finding his way onto the other, and this Jarvan is so high value against targets lacking that ability. This has been a late game battle between the AD carries, and Attila has stopped Astralis' hopes out when it looked so great for them.
Astralis bought the fire, but Attila brings the thunder. What a game from the veteran AD carry, and X7 come out with a Game 1 victory.
What a comeback!